When you play the Game of Thrones, you
Subscribe and like.
or you die. There is no middle ground.
All right, hello YouTube. Welcome back to the Grease Comms YouTube channel. Today's video, we are going to be talking about Season 3 of House of the Dragon. Specifically, I want to look at predictions, what I think has to be done in Season 3, and if, specifically, I actually think that they can do the rest of the dance in 2 seasons that most likely will only be to 8 episodes. Talked about this a lot. Usually shows, once they minimize the episodes, right, you go from 10 to 8 episodes, usually don't revert and go back up. And we've also seen some comments from Ryan Connell that would apply to it's going to be somewhat the same as Season 2 in terms of the flow of it. But before we talk about Season 3 in depth, I want to give a huge shout out to my Patreons and members, but thank you to those individuals. And also, if you did want to become one, you do get videos as soon as I go to even upload to process them on YouTube. They go right out to you guys. You guys usually get them days earlier, and you also get an exclusive video each week. So if you're interested in that, check that out. The link is in the description. But let's get into House of the Dragon Season 3. So think about where we left off. We know that the Battle of the Gullet was going to occur either in Episode 9 or in Episode 10. Now, personally, I think it made sense if the Battle of the Gullet was going to be in Episode 9, given that's like the big battle episode. If you think about the Battle of the Blackwater, that happens in Episode 9. If you think about the Battle of the Bastards, that happens in Episode 9 in Game of Thrones. It made sense that we were gearing up towards the Battle of the Gullet. And so when we go into Season 3, I think that's going to have to be what the first episode is. If it's not the first episode, it's the second episode, but then that would kind of draw some questions to me based upon how Season 2 ended. So in Season 2, when it ends, you see all of the dragon seeds are gearing up for this conflict or taking King's Landing. That's what Rhaenyra believes right now, because Alicent has told her, yeah, take the city. Aemon is planning to leave. So it would imply that by like us having like our Avengers Assemble like stuff where everybody's gearing up, it would appear that they are going to be on their way to King's Landing, and then they're going to get intercepted by the Triarchy, in which that is going to then have the Battle of the Gullet. Now, I want to say this right away. There are going to be spoilers, because that stuff, I mean, I feel like it's pretty easy to realize the battle was going to happen, but from here on out, all this is spoilers. So, when we get to the Battle of the Gullet, I also think this is going to be done completely differently. I don't think it'll be kind of the same way the things happen that happens in the book. Like, for instance, Jace dies just in this battle. I don't know if that's going to stay the same, because we also have this idea that Rhaenyra's younger children, Aegon the Younger, and then also Viserys, they were supposed to be sending to Pentos, and so they would directly come into contact with the Triarchy fleet that's coming over to break the blockade. So will that go differently? Because now the timing is going to be completely off in terms of what's going on there. And so what I think is going to happen, I think they're going to combine a lot of events. I think that's what this season's going to have a lot of issues with, or maybe if it can do those things well, it's going to be based upon, can they kind of mix certain things into one? And so Aegon and Viserys, they, in the normal story, in the book at least, they end up getting attacked by the Triarchy. Aegon gets away on his dragon, while Viserys basically gets found out eventually, and he's just kind of kept, for the most part. Like, if people think in Westeros that he's dead, Rhaenyra believes he's dead, but he will still be alive and come back into the story later on. But the important thing to note here is that in the show, when we see Aegon the Younger and his dragon is too small, it's too young to be able to even ride. So how is that event going to play out the same way as it did, say, for instance, in the book, if that's going to occur? And the way I think it's going to happen is I think Jace is going to be someone that's going to rescue the 2 kids, or at least try, and something is going to go wrong as to where he dies during that part of it. Maybe that's what ends up happening. I just don't know how they're going to do that plot without there being some sort of other dragon rider that's there that helps rescue Aegon, but isn't able to maybe rescue Viserys or something like that. It could play out something similar to that. Maybe Jace gets killed. Instead of like him and his dragon falling to the water, maybe it's like he dies, but his dragon's also really hurt, but his dragon's able to then get to Dragonstone to deliver Aegon to Rhaenyra, but then Jace's dragon dies at this point. I don't know. You can go a number of ways with this idea. They have to combine it somehow, or at least they might just even cut the Aegon and Viserys stuff as a whole. Think that would be a really weird decision, because this event really heavily impacts Rhaenyra, and it's kind of like this combined with Jace's death change Rhaenyra for the worst, especially in the book. She starts becoming more of an active participant in the war, but not in a good way. And so you're going to have to combine those things, right? So the battle, I think, of the gullet will happen in the first episode. That seems likely. They could maybe also do a switcheroo. They could change the way certain events happen, right? Like the fall of King's Landing doesn't happen until after the Battle of the Gullet, the Battle of the Honey Wine, the Battle of the Red Fork, and the Fish Feed. They may put the fall of King's Landing in episode 2. That might be like the big event of episode 2 after the Gullet, after we see like the repercussions of what ended up occurring there with Jace's death, with in Rhaenyra's eyes, Viserys' death. Her son Aegon has been through a traumatic experience. Corlys has lost a ton of his value and his treasures, and we end up seeing again High Tide consumed by fires and 1/3 of his ships being destroyed. The Velaryons will never really be the same. Like even after this, like Alan is somebody that is a really big and prominent figure for the Velaryons, but their power never really gets back up to where it was pre-dance, and so this is kind of that reason. So I think we'll see like a lot of that, like the reaction of kind of the happens at the Battle of the Gullet, but then we'll also see Rhaenyra taking, I think, the throne in episode 2. But the other stuff that's going to be interesting, like how do they play into, okay, the Battle of the Honey Wine? Like this is a major battle for Daeron specifically. This is kind of like him, you know, finally joining the battle and really becoming like a prominent figure in this war. As of right now, nobody even really takes him as a threat. Like if you think about Rhaenyra, she's talking about the Dragon Riders, and she basically just doesn't even bother with Daeron, for instance. And so how do they do that, right? That has to be introduced in this season. I think Daeron, given it 8 episodes, he's going to have to be someone that's prominent in this season. So I think we're probably going to see Otto's plotline get combined with Daeron's plotline. Now, that's going to be interesting because Otto dies at King's Landing, and that I think is going to fall by episode 2. So Otto Hightower can't be in a position then to die in episode 2. I don't think that's going to occur. So how does Otto die? Does Otto die somehow in this Battle of the Honey Wine, or will they save his death for much later on in the story? I think it's very likely they'll actually save Otto's death for later on. But yeah, they have to do this. They have to develop the Reach plot line. I don't know how they're going to fit that in, but that does also need to happen in this season. Maybe they might just cut it. I don't know why they would do that, because Daeron is one of the most interesting characters at this point, but who knows? Then also at the same time, right, as we got foreshadowed in the end of season 2, we have some battles going on in kind of the Riverlands area, right? So we have, you know, Criston Cole and Aemond, they make their way out of King's Landing heading toward Harrenhal, and Daemon already knows of these plans and all of that, and basically outmaneuvers Aemond, and that's why they take the capital. But that is going to be another part of it, right? How do they depict some of the stuff going on in the Riverlands? Will it be a lot of, okay, we don't really see it on screen, but it's kind of like a Battle of the Burning Mill situation. Maybe we see the beginning and then the resulting end part of the battle. That's all got to be done in this season, and so maybe that'll be kind of the middle of this season. Episode 3, 4, 5 will kind of get more of the Reach plot line. Maybe they'll push back the Battle of the Honey Wine and also have like the Red Fork and the Fish Feed going on at the same time. Like I talked about, I think the Fall of King's Landing is going to happen in episode 2 more than likely, but we'll see how they do that. Another part of this, especially because we're in 8 episodes, will we even get like the Dalton Greyjoy plotline? They actually have a somewhat of a significant role in the dance, and thus far we've only gotten that name dropped, like Dalton Greyjoy, maybe once or twice, I believe, in season 2. So who knows if we'll get that plot line as well, because there's a whole little thing there, especially with the sacking of Lannisport. But who knows? They've got to fit that in there as well. So maybe that occurs somewhere in the middle of this season. Who knows? We also then have what I think will probably be, in my opinion, could be episode 7, in my opinion. I think the Butcher's Ball, which is what ended up getting Criston Cole killed, I think will probably be the episode 7 of this season. I think it makes the most sense. It's one of your more prominent characters that's going to die in this season. But yeah, I think the Butcher's Ball makes the most sense. But then you also have some other stuff that's going on around this time as well. Like we have 2 different battles of Tumbleton. Is that going to occur in this season? Is that going to occur in the next season? Like, will we even see Tumbleton in this season? Or are they going to save that for the finale? Because as we know, Tumbleton happens like right before Rhaenyra's death. And again, at the second Battle of Tumbleton, think about how many characters die. You know, you have Daeron, Hugh, Ulf's going to die around that time. You have Adam, who's going to die. So that all feels like it's going to be stuff that happens in the next season. I don't know, because I don't think we have enough time to really cover both the first and the second battle. Also, we have, again, something else that could be in this season at the very end would also be the fall of Dragonstone. That also occurs by Aegon and people loyal to him at this time, and also a bit of a betrayal that we saw from, you know, Alfred Broom. He's the one that kind of flips on Rhaenyra. He does it a little bit early, I guess, in the show, but yeah, so that's what I'm kind of talking about with season 3. There's a lot of stuff that has to be covered. And when you even think about what they covered in season 2, like if you look at the Song of Ice and Fire wiki, more or less, and you just briefly skim through the events that occurred in season 2, we didn't really make that much progress. I mean, we got through what? We get through Harrenhal, Blood and Cheese, some of the Riverlands stuff, and we barely didn't even see most of the Riverlands stuff. We have, you know, Otto becoming Hand, we have the Cargill twins, Essingdale, Rook's Rest, and then the Dragon Seeds. Like, that's not a lot. Compared to what I think is going to happen or needs to happen in season 3, there's much more that needs to happen in season 3. Because if you even look at where I think season 3 is going to end, which is either going to be around the Butcher's Ball and we'll get a reaction, or possibly the fall of Dragonstone, we still have a ton of stuff that needs to happen, right? Like, think about this. This is not even the aftermath of the dance. We would still, if we leave on the fall of Dragonstone, we would still have the battle above the God's Eye, the storming of the Dragon Pits, the second Tumbleton, which I think will be combined with the first Tumbleton, Rhaenyra's death, the Moon of the Three Kings, the Battle of the Kingsguard, Aegon II's death, the False Dawn, the Hour of the Wolf, like the Regency of Aegon. Like, that's what I'm trying to say here, is that I don't know how in 16 episodes we're going to get through all that material. And so if it is going to be done well, it's probably going to be because we're going to have to combine a lot of different events that are occurring in the Fire and Blood source material that are going to get combined. They've kind of already done certain things like that in general, just like combining certain plot points, but I am very worried. I mean, to me, I don't think season 2 is that great. And so how are they going to, you know, combine all these things to try and get season 3 out? And that's why I do, you know, have a lot of worries about this show, because it feels a lot like how Game of Thrones was, where we didn't have enough seasons, we didn't have enough episodes to really fully conclude this story. And now we're trying to combine things. We're trying to get through some things really quickly. And I'd love to eat my words. I would love to think that when season 3 comes out, it's going to be fantastic. They're going to do it justice. I just have lost faith basically, from season 2, and looking at how much they have to put into the next 2 seasons, it's going to be a lot. It's giving me a lot of like season 5 vibes, where it was supposed to combine not only Feast for Crows, but also Dance with Dragons, 2 different books into one season, and it just didn't go that well. I think there was a bigger issue with season 5, because that's even way more source material that you have to adapt, but I'm still a bit worried about season 3 of House of the Dragon. But let me know what you guys think. How do you think season 3 will end, and what are your predictions for some events that are going to happen, and how good do you think the next season will be?